Uh-oh.
Well, we're live.
We are live. Hey, boys and girls. Live now, episode 17, Portfolio Reviews by me, R.T. Bear, a 30-year comic book veteran. I've worked for just about everybody, but mainly Marvel and DC Comics on such titles as Adventures of Superman, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, Fantastic Four, Detective Comics, Batman, Superman, Action Comics, Super Sons, Teen Titans. I'm going to name them all. Yeah, well, I could keep going, but I won't. So, anyways, welcome to the live portfolio reviews, and I want to introduce you to Taylor. Taylor, say hi.
Hi everyone. I'll be reading your chats today. They really want you to name your whole list.
My whole oh my whole okay, my resume. What else? I've done Green Lantern. I've done Iron Man. I Daredevil. Um, Gosh, who else? Captain America. Gosh. Time Masters, which the TV show was named after. So I did the comic book way back when. So it's a lot of things, and of course my Image books, which all the extreme stuff, Wildcats, Spawn, and Black and White, Chrono Mechanics. There's been a lot. Look it up. It's fun. So, okay, so we have this. Taylor said click this off because we have a full house today. So I'm going to click this one off. Uh-oh, what did I do?
Click the first one.
The fleeced one.
Don't look. Okay.
Why did it do that? That was weird. So I think the first one is, these are inks, and this is my specialty, so this should be fun. So I'm going to focus on his name. Tibian? How would you say that, Taylor? Let's see.
Tibian. The chat likes it. They're very impressed.
From the inks?
Yeah.
Or the resume?
I don't know, actually.
I hope the resume. Or both. We can share. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a scan of this because this looks pretty darn controlled. I'm having a hard time with figuring digital versus hand inks, but these to me, parts look hand inked, parts look digital to me.
Long-time chatter Sherman actually claims this as his.
Is this your Sherman? Cool. Well, tell me, are these digital? They look hand inked, but there's parts that look kind of digital to me. So let me know so I can take the guesswork. But I'm gonna let everybody see your wonderful work before I comment, anyways.
It was done with a Maru nib, he says.
Okay. There's some really smooth lines here. Sherman. This poor robot's holding his own arm. Yeah, I like Jimmy's work. So you picked a good penciler to work from. Really nice. Oh, look at Rocket. He's adorable. And he's quite a little handful. Okay, let's go up to panel 1 and get into Sherman's stuff. Overall, pretty amazing. Line weights are really good. Your background buildings here, thinner line weights. Your foreground characters, and it's real subtle because there's not a lot of like, it's not overdone, but just enough with the line weight from the background to the midground figures. What I would like to see though is this figure right here. Um, I'd like to see this character, not a lot, but a little, like little thicker. The line's a little thicker around it. I don't know if Jimmy did this because I haven't really studied his style, but I'm not a big fan of these like halos when, especially when they seem unnecessary. Because they don't. Sometimes, like you think, oh, if I put a halo, it's going to make the figure pop from the background, but sometimes it doesn't. It just isolates the figure from what's going on in the story. So actually, now I look at Rocket, he's got a halo too. So it looks like it's all done by Jimmy. So Jimmy did it. So it's a stylistic thing. But personally, I'm not against halos altogether. But in this case, I think it's totally unnecessary because I think it distorts and distracts like these here. But that's not you, Sherman. I'm pretty sure this is Jimmy doing this. So Jimmy, if you're listening, cut it out, man. Stop it. Yeah, I think over what I see mainly, what stands out for me is just that the line weight around this figure could be a little thicker. And then this is kind of common where it should be rounded off there. And it's a little too pointed. I'll zoom in so you can see. So sometimes, like it's right here, it will distort the shape a little bit. So just a little rounder. Nice hatch work. Looks like it's a nice pin that you're using, very fluid. Maybe I will try those pins. Yeah, so I just see just line weight, and it's mainly, like I said, just on this figure here. But these backgrounds are inked pretty nice in comparison, like line weight wise, comparison to the figures. Um, she's getting a little lost here, and this break here in the top, and some of this line weight is a little thin. So I think if this was a little more solid in here and in here, and then even though this is kind of more like a uniform line, there's not a lot of dramatic thins and thicks, which is kind of Jimmy's style where it's a little bit more linear. You can still put some thicker lines in places. It'll help. And then you have this thick here on the back. I always look at like the light sources hitting here because it's the top part, and that maybe the heavier line should be down in here. So like if you thinned this out and then maybe thickened it up in here, but the main thickness kind of in this area here.
Our buddy Pixel Trader is here. He says he was live streaming himself, but he left once he saw that you were on.
Aw. Yeah, hey, thanks, Pixel. If you guys haven't checked out, he colored up a 6-arm Spider-Man commission that I did. And I think it's up on his YouTube, and it's also up on his Facebook. And I think I posted it as well. So it's up on my Facebook as well. But he does good work, Pixel. Welcome to the chat. Everybody after this, go to Pixel's chat. So sometimes, like corners, I'm a fan of thinning out a little bit. Like if they're too thick, they compete with structure. So thin some of the corners out because they start becoming interior lines. Like you have, Sherman, you have this nice thickness here, but then this, which is the structure, is thinner. So just as far as prioritizing your line weights, I would always go thinner in interior stuff and thicker where it's more of a structure or an exterior line. So try to think that way. So sometimes it seems like it's an interior because, it's inside the figure here, but almost think about everything as its own entity, its own thing, and then think about it as a whole as well. So, excuse me, a way to prioritize this figure in particular, this one here, um, would be the main outline would be the thickest. Okay, so then you have that, and so then secondary, you have interiors, which like this jawline kind of becomes an interior structure. This hat right here becomes an interior structure. So those would be like secondary, like line weights. And also, this is a rule excluding like shadows and stuff like that. And so then this becomes like a secondary structure. So you have this nice thick line here, which is cool. But like I said, up here, and then you can see this line gets really thin. And so this is weird. I think this line should connect. And then this arm should be thicker, and this break right here. I know that it's the halo, but it's just distorting the image for me. So I'm not going to override Jimmy's thing, but this line still needs a little bit more weight on it, and this line needs a lot more weight on it. So I think those things would help out with a way of helping you think about how to prioritize the line. And then, like I said too, here, like think about an overall lighting source that's coming straight down. And so when this will help you prioritize your line weights as well. So as the light hits, like say this section here, because it's the highest, that would be the thinnest line. And then as it goes away from the light source, it becomes thicker. And then underneath things like you have here, the eye, it's the thickest. And then a little thicker here where the lip is, a little thicker under the lip, which you have, and then thicker under the chin here. And then of course, like I have here, the thickness under the head. So if I did this in black, which I probably should have done, you could see it coming together. And then this is an example of like the secondary that I was talking about. If you put a little bit more line weight under here, what we'll do is it'll make it start standing out. It'll look dimensional. I'm gonna do something here. So let's see if I can ink this up for you guys so you can really see what I'm talking about.
Ooh.
And this is going to be a little, ooh, I like that. This is going to be a little messy, so this won't be real clean. Let's see if I can blow it up so you can see it more. But I'm basically going to do what I just said, but with black, so then you can kind of see how it relates. So, like I said, this is probably going to be a little too heavy and sloppy. So let's see if I can do this. Okay, so this is a good transition now from the top of the head around to the front, and then Sherman's got this nice thickness right here with like the nose bridge. So then I would thicken it up a little bit here, and I'm talking about structural, not interiors right now, just exteriors. And then bring this out a little bit and thicken up the lip. And then here, since the front part right here is about the same thickness, you can thicken this up just a tad. So you can start seeing how it's becoming more solid. And then Sherman's got this nice thickness here over in this area. And let's see if I can ink over this red. So then, yeah, I wouldn't go much thicker than this here, even though the red is thicker. Let's see if I can get rid of some of this red. So that's how I would prioritize, and breaking lines sometimes works stylistically, but I don't think it works here. So I wouldn't break that. And that light thing that I was telling you about coming down here, like straight down, as this progresses away from the light, I would maybe make it a little thicker. That got a little sloppy, but you can kind of, it's a little exaggerated, but you can see what I'm talking about. So that's what I would do. And then she's got this neck, so you have this thickness here, but what I would do is I would bring this in thicker, because by bringing that in thicker, see how it's connecting the head to the neck better. And then I think I would smooth this out right here on the neck. So see, it's starting to look a lot more solid. And then here's what I was talking about, like an interior structure. So her mask, or whatever this is, her headdress, which is pretty darn cool design.
I don't know if I quite understand this question, but title says, what would be a good total line weight, number of total line weights?
Oh my gosh, like a mathematical equation. I don't know. I mean, there would obviously be three, like a thin, a middle line weight, and a thick line weight. But it's also those three principles are going to depend on where the figure is in the composition. So if you have a figure that's closer to you, like a big figure, that's going to still have those same three principles, the thin, middle, and thick line, but they're just going to be thicker than, say, a background character. So those three principles still apply to every size character in the composition. So I hope that helps. Let me get back into, see if I can do this without screwing up Sherman's nice line here. So if you thicken this up a little bit, then what happens is it becomes dimensional. So let me find my red again. So like Sherman's got this line, this thickness here, but he didn't have it up here. So once again, that light coming down, and this is just kind of made up. Like this, the light sources always change, but just as a basic rule for figuring out how to prioritize line weights, which is what I'm trying to show you now. If you think about the light coming straight down, then what I did here is kind of a shadow, even though it's a structure, but it's kind of casting a little bit of a shadow. And then this right here, depending on the thickness of the top part where the red is, this cheek part might work, or you might want to make this a little thinner. I should have got rid of the red before I did that. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I have my line inked there. Let's thin this out just a tad. Yeah, see what it's doing now? Let me pull it back so you can see it better. So it's kind of prioritizing the line weight, and at the same time, it's making that head. You can see it's a lot more three-dimensional. It's a lot more. It's solid looking.
Sherman asks, sorry you guys, this chat disappears very quickly. Would the light coming straight down change the line thickness on the character's back?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Wow, you just read my mind. I'm going to try to get the line tool and see if I can illustrate what I was talking about earlier with the back. Too much. So if we thin it out, so you can already start seeing how it looks like the light is hitting the top part of the back, kind of like the top part of her head. So you have this light coming down. Let me get my right tool here. And then as it starts bending away from the light, it starts getting thicker. This is still a little too thick. Let me get my black, because it's starting to transition, which it should, but possibly it should be a little bit more here as well. This is, I screwed up there, but then I would continue this line weight a little bit more. Like I said, that's me screwing up. And then thinner here, and then thicker right down here as it's going away from the light. But Jimmy's stuff is real subtle. The line weights aren't, like, there's not a lot of thin to thick. Some guys are a lot more dynamic with the line weights. So I'm trying to make this look a little better. But you kind of can get the idea of what's going on here. And then I would carry that same principle through to the arms and everything else. So I think this figure, what I did here, I think would apply to almost all of your inking. So it would benefit from that. And so maybe if you think about things in a light source sort of way, it might help give you a way to think about stuff. So it becomes less arbitrary, less made up. So it kind of has rules. So you're applying rules to the line weights. And a lot of what we do too with the line weights and stuff is an aesthetic. So you want a rhythm and balance and flow, just like drawing. See, just by thickening this arm up a little bit, it's starting to look more dimensional. And especially if I do, so keep it thin up here, and then right about here, start thickening it up. And then once again, as this starts progressing, where there's less light, subtly thicken it up.
Gary Shipman wants to know what program you're using.
Caveman programs, my friend. I have no idea. This is just like, I'm using a mouse. What was that Wacom that you brought in, Taylor?
Yeah.
I tried a Wacom, and to be honest, I don't like the way the pen works. I actually like this stupid mouse better. So I am a bit of a caveman, and I understand that. But for me, it's just a control thing. I'm just more comfortable with the mouse. So what program is this? It's
Just
Photoshop.
standard Photoshop.
Yeah, it's probably Photoshop from 1960. That's too thick, but I want to put. I'll show you something that you can do with these staffs or these type of ideas.
Oh, Blacklist Universe is here.
Hey, Blacklist Universe, Mikey. Yeah, so if you put black on this side of the staff, you can keep that thinner line weight, because it's kind of like what I was saying with your light source, with the light source idea, where if the light source is coming in like this, see, the light is hitting this part of the staff, and it's kind of creating a shadow on the other side. So it's just a way of thinking, and the light source is the best way I can teach a way to prioritize line weights. And all these principles that I'm telling you or showing you right now, they can apply to really dynamic inks where there's a lot of thicks and thins and variations going on, and it can also apply to something more subtle like Jimmy's work here. But let me see if I can we'll go turbo inks on Jimmy here. So right here, really exaggerate it. So you have that, and so then the underside of this fold, really exaggerate. And so this one not so much because it's kind of, this one's bent out more, so the shadow would kind of come into play a little bit more. And let's smooth this out. But sometimes I like to thicken up things that have mass just because it kind of looks cool. So if we thicken that up and then thicken this bottom up, like I said, I'm going, these are extreme, these are more extreme inks. So that's kind of a way that you could do it as well. Let me carry that thought.
Mike said, "Hey, I just said that because he said while you were talking, it also gives the items mass, the weight."
Yeah, it weights down things. Yeah, it gives gravity to the object. So you can kind of see there's two ways that I ink this arm and shoulder up. So we could carry through more of the figure, but let's keep going. But those principles, I think, since I looked at your work overall, I think it all has the same situation. So always, you kind of have these breaks, and I don't know if Jimmy's putting them in and you're following, but I wouldn't do them. I don't think it really serves. So then we put this weight here, but then we want to put this weight here. And I'm going exaggerated again because that's the way I like to ink. It's a lot more fun to ink with exaggerations. And hey, this is superhero comics, so what the hey. So let me actually go back here. So this is one of those interior or exterior lines that becomes an interior line. So like I was saying, your interior lines want to be thinner, except in this case where he's trying to accent like a shadow. So let me see here. Kind of smooth that transition over because it's also, there's a little bit of shadow, but this is where the fun inker in me comes into play. Like I would totally, and then it kind of comes into this solid black a little bit more. And then I think this is supposed to be the collar. So I would bring a little bit more weight in here. So it starts making this a little bit more solid and gives it weight. And once again, I don't, what is, Taylor, is this poor guy's arm chopped off?
It looks like it. I was thinking the same thing.
That's sad.
2 of his arms.
It looks like Rocket serving him up on a platter. These breaks, they might be Jimmy's style, but I don't really like them, and I would probably power trip Jimmy and solidify them. When I inked Chris Pacello, he does a lot of those breaks, and I would actually minimize them because I thought, it kind of was making the image hard to read. So I'm not doing a good smooth job here, but bring in some line weight underneath.
Wrath of says, he's an alien. Maybe he has starfish powers.
He'll just grow back. He's got a healing factor. So like here too, especially since there's shadow, bring a good solid line in there. So see, he's starting to already pop. Do I still have my red? Yeah, I'll find my red here.
Irish says, I need a gun, 2 crystals, and that guy's arms.
That's true. And my axe. And my ox. I just threw that axe in there. It's not really a line from the movie. But what was I going to do with the red? I was going to do something. I forgot. Oh, yeah. That you can start seeing how this is starting to solidify, and he's standing out a little bit more. So then to, let's see here, go back to my black, back in black.
The chat likes your Gimli impression.
And my axe. I say it all the time. And my nib. And my brush. Okay, yeah, so if we thicken this up, thicken up some of these rocks or egg shapes here. So, and this whatever shape here. We start getting some dimensionality in there. So I'm not even going to get into this back half of this lizard dude, because that doesn't look fun for me. I get to pick and choose. This is actually liberating for me. I don't have to ink the whole page. I can just pick places. So here's an interior. These are some interior ideas that you can use. So like the brow and some of these things become, like I was saying, like secondary structures. So they can have some thicker line weights.
They're talking in the chat about one of Mike's debates that he was having, I guess, in his last video.
Oh, okay. Was it about inking? Mike's a pretty damn good inker, pardon my French. So here's where you can kind of, underneath the objects a little bit, bring some weight. Because, once again, like I was saying, the light source idea, it doesn't just apply to outside, it applies to the interiors as well. So you can kind of exaggerate things that would be the underside, where there's less light. So you have this nice line weight here on the lip, but I would actually continue the idea down the whole lip. And so maybe even more of the top lip. And I'm going to do this just to exaggerate this, but because this is a pretty good line weight. But if you thin this out a little bit, see what you have now? You prioritize the line weights, and so now this becomes more readable and the mouth has more depth to it. So also just the nose right here, if you were to thin this line out here, then it's starting to have more depth to it. And be careful with your hatching too, because sometimes when we start off, the hatching becomes a little thicker and it's not in scale with the piece anymore. So sometimes, like your hatching, everything has to be in scale relationship to whatever the size of the figure is. And so all the hatching still has to fit that, whether it's a medium, close-up, or pulled back shot. So see how, because if you make the hatching too thick, it becomes structural. So you have to try to prioritize all the detail in a way that's easily digestible. And so inking, that's where the skill of inking comes in. It's a lot of prioritizing how things are read. So if your hatching's too thick, it becomes structure, because the thickness is like the structure. So
Sherman said while he's been listening to you, I guess he's at work, his manager came in and he had to mute the video temporarily.
oh, well, you can come back, it'll be up, we'll keep it up so you can check it later. And I hope this helps, Sherman. I mean, the thing is, sometimes I kid about like bust and hump and stuff like that, but I mean, this is really done out of love, and I do want the community, I want good artists out there. You know, the better artists we have, you know, doing these books, it just looks good for everybody. And it's an art form, and I had a lot of people early on that showed me little tips and took time with me. So this is me paying it forward, and helping the artist community here. This is he's got this I was going to call it a peck, but it's kind of a peck slash fat fold. You can have fun with these. Wait, where am I? Okay, there we go. And this is once again the lighting thing. Don't be afraid, to do stuff a little thicker, because check that out now. Now all of a sudden there's depth to this chest area. So have fun, play around. Experiment, try new things.
Gary says, RT Bears inking it forward.
I like that.
And Zach says, Sherman, you should have told him to shut it. You're getting tips from a genius.
Oh my gosh, you guys are way too kind. This is really nice, this simplified line weight back here. This is really hard. You have to show a lot of restraint, I think. So I would probably, even to the point that where I'm at now, I probably would have overdone this. But I think the simplicity actually serves it. And what I'm talking about, let me find my red here. I'll just go over here. This might be a little bit purpley. What I'm talking about is all the stuff that's inside of this like little cavernous room. So that's all inked really, really nice. However, if some of this had a little bit thicker, especially once again, this isn't catching the light, this is shadow. So you can get a little bit thicker in here. It'll also help transition this into this black here. And then the rest of this wall is really good, but it's where the shadow would be here. And then not a whole lot here, but a little bit more here, more here. Tops less, remember, because of the lighting, but I would still just a little bit, because you want this, all of this to stand out from all of this. So if this had a little bit more line weight to it, it would be more successful. And don't forget, even where things break, they still continue. And then, having said that, what you have here, okay, this is a great example. Just this little section is you have a deep background, and then you have a midground and you have a foreground. But you have two background. You have kind of one middle or two. Well, how would I prioritize this? I guess two, like one deep background, which would be this. So this one is transitioning from a background to a midground, and then you have this one that's transitioning from a midground to a foreground, and then you have this that is a foreground. So having said that, let's see. So then we have this, we have this. So then my next prioritized line weight would be this. So this would be slightly thicker than this one here. And remember to carry it down. So I would do that as, maybe if I do, so this would be number 1, 2, 3, and then this one would be 4.
Gary Shipman says he's learning a lot right now from you.
Oh, thank you. And so then this one would be the thickest, but also keep in mind when you do this, it's still following that rule of the lighter part on the top and the heavier as it goes away from the light. And I don't know how this is relating to the rest of the panel because I'm not looking at it, so this might be way overblown. It probably is. But I'm just taking this little section just to show you how, because I think this was a good example of how to kind of prioritize. And I should have done this all in black. But anyways, I hope that helped just as a way to prioritize. And then obviously, well, let's see before I speak. Okay, this knocked over object here rocket and this robot are just about on the same plane. So I would say whatever this object is should have similar line weights to the robot and to rocket. Um, but also, having said that, sometimes things that have more mass than others, like this looks like a big object to me, this thing here. So for some reason, I think I would prioritize this with maybe a little bit of a thicker line weight than, say, rocket, and more so than the robot as well. But this is really cool. This up here, I like the way you ink that. It's nice. Really clean. Really good. I think you got yourself a future here. Yeah, this is fur is always a toughie, even for me, because you don't want to structure it up too much. Because sometimes if you structure it up too much, you have you lose the flow of the hair. But I think I would, since it's not catching the light, I would thicken up that, and I would definitely thicken up this back. Maybe a little there. And then definitely under this chin. And sometimes you can leave these breaks here, but what I usually do is I'll ink like this. I'll ink over it so I can get that flow, and then I'll continue the rhythm through. And then what I'll do is I'll come in with white paint, and I'll just hint at these lines wherever they are, or whatever you want to do. That way you have this continuing flow, and you're not breaking the line like with the structure, so you can keep the structure flow going, which is pretty important. And then here is, I would thicken this up a lot more here too. And then here's one of the undersides, thicken up. And then this is where sometimes I like breaks in hair, so it gets tricky, but you still have to bring line weight into things. So if you do the underside of the fur, and then this kind of gets more structured, you can still kind of have your breaks. I know I said breaks aren't, but on fur and sometimes hair they work. So you can break the line, but you don't want to lose the structure of things. So this is tricky, and maybe we'll do a whole thing on fur at some point. But that's tricky, and I think I need to move to my next person. So this is very good, very good. Taylor, help me with the name. Do you remember?
It's Sherman,
Sherman.
Tibion, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah. Thanks, Tibion, Sherman.
Long-time subscriber.
Yeah, and thanks for all the support as well. Yeah, this has got a lot of promise, Sherman. Just keep at it. Just keep at it. Don't get discouraged. And the main thing, have fun. And there's a lot of fun that looks like you're having here. And that nib looks like it's serving you. I gotta look into that nib that you're using. So we got that. So let's click out of this one. We don't. Oh my gosh. Keep going to that. Okay. So I'm not sure if this is a. This looks like it might be a story page. No, it's kind of a pinup, I think. So we have the Marvel family here. Well, actually, is this Mary Marvel? Just hasn't shifted or changed, or is that? What do you think? That's Lois Lane?
I think that's Lois. It looks like a Daily Planet award or something.
This Captain Marvel here, though. It's weird. That's not Superman. I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. We have Superman with the Super Kids, the Super Sons kids. This is great cartooning. This is really nice.
Sherman says, thanks, that was very informative. I guess it's pronounced like T-Bear. JK, hopefully I can tell you in person one day.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
And Mike says it's 3 kids being yelled at by an adult.
Oh, okay. She doesn't look like she's yelling though. Looks like she's trying to hold back the aggression. She's like, "Look what you kids have done." Okay. So the obvious is lost on me sometimes. You know, there's some anatomy things that I want to say, but I find them absolutely charming, like these shortened muscles shapes here on the legs. Um, Usually they go, they're a little bit more elongated, and usually I don't know, the legs are a little short, but I think it adds charm to this drawing. Yeah, I like it. So your outside structures are really nice. Your drawing is quite good. You obviously have this cartooning thing down. Man, I'd be upset too if my Daily Planet trophy was destroyed. A nice effect, like the Kirby crackle on his lightning bolt. The shadowing, this duotone, or I don't know, they used to call it zipatone. I'm not sure what this stuff is now, but I think it's a digital effect. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't have too much to say other than I think some of your hatching is a little overdone. Like, I think if it was maybe simplified a little bit, like maybe it was just in certain places, or if it was prioritized differently. Like if you had some more like thin to thick progressions, because like this side, these side hatches here are a little too much. And these ones here, like if they were maybe less and less here. So think about your hatching sometimes like the light, well, in the form of the light source. So you have a black on this side, and then you have a hatch on this side. So rhythmically, that's why I took this hatch out. Well, because it seems like the light is hitting this side, would hit this side more, and this side hatch is kind of recessing into a shadow. But rhythmically, sometimes you want like a solid black line with a hatch. Sometimes if you do a hatch and a hatch, it starts looking muddy. So there's always exceptions to every rule. So let's simplify some of this. I like these real mechanical shapes in here. It's pretty cool. Take these out. I would definitely simplify this. If you're gonna do cross hatching, you really have to prioritize. Like go, like one of the transition would be thinner than the other. So, like these lines coming in this direction, and they fade into the black. I would start off a lot thinner up here, and then go in. But I would prioritize this whole progression as thinner, and then the ones that are coming in this direction, because they're coming right out of the black, I would say those should be the thickest. So when you do cross hatching, sometimes you have to prioritize one line as they cross. Let me see, as they cross. Like say this one would be thinner. Oops, I bumped the camera, sorry. So this one would be thinner, and then this one underneath would be thicker maybe. So I can't really do that on this. I can't redraw this stuff. It would be really tough. but yeah, maybe we'll get into that, or over the course of these things, if you keep staying tuned, I think you'll get the gist of things. Sometimes we pick up on stuff just over a course of time. Yeah, I believe that just some of the, see how it's already, the shapes are reading better. Sometimes we can overdo the hatching, and especially if we don't understand how to do it properly. So this looks like a lot of,
Ira says, is it possible to just do solid blacks? Is hatching at all necessary?
well, if you don't hatch, usually in comic books, it starts looking like like a coloring book or like animation art. So I would say at least some hatching. Like if you look at Mike Mignola's work, what makes I mean, it's obviously got a really cool style, but he does these like, let me see, I'll see if I can draw one. They're like, I just call them like these nick hatches. Like they're not even really progression, even though sometimes they do, but they're just, and like say here's the structure here, or whatever the shade, the shadow is over here. Um, but they're more designy than actual. They kind of imply gray, like a transition from like light to dark. So they take on the traditional role of a gray area, but they're very stylized, and but there still is that transition. And I think if there wasn't those little nick hatches, it would start looking like too bold, too aggressive, too just black and white, coloring book, animation, stuff like that. So I would say always try to do some type of hatching on your work. This has that weird halo and a halo. I don't really like that. Let's see if I can find my black. So I think what he's trying to do is show like maybe the collarbone, but I think I would.
Pixel says, in a world without hatching, they are
Oh,
black and white.
black and white. This is the joke segment of the portfolio review. Take it, guys. I want to hear some black and white, red all over jokes. In a world. Yeah, I could keep this. My inker instincts are kicking in, but yeah, I think you get the idea with the hatching. I kind of want to get into some anatomy here, but to be honest, I like this. It's cartoony. It's not realistic, but I like this kind of stubbier proportions, and because the muscles aren't elongated, and usually, superheroes are the perfect specimens, and they're usually a little elongated. But I like this stylization of the muscles. I like the stylization of this rib cage here. It's pretty cool, and the drawing overall is really good. And you captured a pretty cool comedic moment. I like it. I think what I would do. Okay, I'm gonna do it. It's been kind of bugging me. Let's see if I can make this happen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez. You know what? Maybe I'll do it with the statue. I'm a big. That's why I like comics. I like comics because you can really push things and you can really make them um, dynamic. And I think for the storytelling aspects of this. Oh, what did I do? I went outside the panel. Let me go up here. I think she's way too big. Let me make her a little smaller here. But like if she's a little bit out in front of them, and then we use the, well, that's too big still. And we use the trophy as, it is a framing device, but maybe a little bit more of a framing device. And put her lower in the composition so she's kind of out in front of them. Well, actually, little Clark or John looks a little too small. But you kind of get the idea that maybe if you play with, because I think what it was when I first saw this, she seemed like she was one of the kids. So I think just storytelling wise, if she's a little bit bigger in the composition, then she looks like the authority. But now making her bigger, these guys don't look like they're working with her because they're turned a little bit in the wrong direction. But it would take a lot of reworking to do this. But maybe in the future, if you think about um, stuff like that, because now when she's away from these three, she looks more like she's not part of these three, that she's the authoritarian. So very, very good. Do we have a name? We didn't have a name on this, did we?
Not on this one. Denali has a question. They say, RT Bear, is it reasonable to say that too much hashing draws too the eye to the location and distracts from the overall structure?
It can. It's tricky because in the day, when we were, we as in Jim Lee, Will Spartaccio, Scott Williams, and myself, were kind of doing the crazy, what they were calling West Coast style, which was a lot of the crazy hatching, the scissor hatching or Z hatching, and all that other stuff. There was there were people that came into comics that didn't understand the language, so they go, why are all these scars and stuff all over their faces and things like that, because they didn't understand. So sometimes you do get into structural problems, or you get into oversaturation. So that's where the art form comes into it. So if you're going to do artwork, it gets a little bit more complicated because you have to always be aware of the structure, and you don't want to lose your structure. Your structure is like what I was showing earlier, like your outside structure, your main structure, the structure that defines whatever the object is. So if this is a figure, then you don't want to make so much hatching within this figure that becomes distracting. And one of the ways you do that is, like I was saying, where if your outside structure is always thicker and then your interior structure is secondary as line weight, then if your hatching is a little thinner than that, then that's a way of prioritizing. Because if you make your hatching too thick, it starts looking like structure, and that's not what you want. This looks like a really quick sketch, so I'm not sure how much I should get into the technical aspects. I think I'll just get into anatomy stuff. I hope that answered your question. It's all good as far as I'm concerned. I'm not one of those guys that makes like, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that as far as hatching or open, because I think it depends on the artist, because some people have very open styles and I like, and some people have very busy styles. I love Barry Windsor Smith, all his ink work and stuff. Yeah, I think there's some problems, and I think this needs to come up a lot more here. Her waist is she's really short-waisted, so she's pretty straight up and down. So the rule is 4 heads is half the body. So 4 heads usually goes right to the crotch. So if this is 1 head, 2 heads, so her chest is about the right side, right place. So that's 2 heads, 3 heads. So she's like 3 and maybe a quarter heads. So really she should be, her crotch should be like, okay, this is 1 head, 2 head, 3 head, 4 head. So her crotch should be, it should be down in here somewhere. So if you find your center line, this area here should be kind of in here. And then if you draw through, and then her leg comes in here. So mostly what I see is a length problem, in the drawing. It's a little stiff, this arm. Like usually, I remember Greg Capullo, he told me once, he said, straight is boring. Always break things. Make, like every joint, he said, is an opportunity to add dynamics. Um, so if you bend the arm slightly, and then you have the wrist going this way, you have this rhythm. So you have this arm to the elbow, the shoulder to the elbow, and then the elbow to the wrist, and then you can bend the wrist slightly in this direction. Um, I know this is a subtler shot. You know, she's not all dynamic or whatever, but you can still add some movement. So you can do that. I have it a little bit more exaggerated than it should be for this pose, but it's just a way of thinking about stuff. And then obviously, since I moved it 4 heads down, her wrist would start, especially since this is all straight up and down too. If her arm was bent, like I was suggesting, her wrist would probably be in the place that you have it. But since her arm is straight, her wrist would be here, and her fist would be somewhere in here. And then this arm's bent, but I would say it's not, if you draw through, the wrist would, and her fist would still be probably somewhere in here. And then the sword coming out that way. So face is nice. Sometimes this is a stylistic thing. My wife always says I make chins too big, but especially in women, sometimes you don't want to make like jawlines too big. There are exceptions. Sometimes stylistically, people do that, or if you're trying to, it's a character trait, then you can do that. So I don't see a name on this one. I'm going to zoom in on his signature so at least I can give him credit or her credit. So there's a signature there. So I'm not going to click on that because I'm giving you guys something that I wanted to tease or I wanted to show you later. Wow. A little bit of energy going on in this panel or this pinup. I don't have a name on the tab. What helps you guys is like the tab, when you name the file, when you send it, put your name in the tab because that's what I see. So if your name is up in the tab, when you name the file, it will help because then I can give you credit because I don't even see a signature on this one. I like this. This is a lot of energy. I like the colors. Very cool. This also looks like a sketch to me. There's a lot of Captain Marvel stuff. I guess because of the new movie. The proportions look pretty good. Let's check the head's size. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's not bad. The arm, yeah, I like this drawing. I think this arm looks a little short, so maybe the elbow should be down here a little bit more. It's sketchy, so I can't really comment too much on the finished aspects because it looks like it's meant to be a sketch. If not meant to be a sketch, I think it would be better not to do any of these hatching at all until you have a better grasp of hatching. This neck looks a little too bent, so maybe if you straighten it out here a little bit more, then get the shoulder in here. This is nice. This is all this neck and this chest is really nice. It's cartoony, but the proportions and stuff are really working for me. Let's see, knees right here. Yeah. So I would say overall, the main thing I see here is that the sketch hatching really isn't serving you. But it does look like a sketch, so I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. So what might be nice is take this drawing, since it's a good drawing, and tighten it up. Maybe take into consideration like this neck, the elbow, and clean up the hatching in your outlines a little bit. And send it in again. I want to, go ahead.
Oh, Pixel says you need 92 more subs before you can get to monetization.
Ooh, let's get the word out. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you know any aspiring artists, are we gonna open it today or tomorrow?
Probably tomorrow if you guys want to submit your stuff.
Yeah, keep going with the details while I do this. Yeah.
So we usually open up portfolio views via a Dropbox that you guys put your files in. Like Art said, please include your name in the file. So we'll probably be opening that up tomorrow. I'll add the link in the video description, but check social media for that link.
Yeah, because I think we only have like 10 more. Well, we don't even have that now because this was part of the 10, right?
Yeah.
So we only have like 5 more people. So we need some new aspiring artists to get in here.
Please keep it comic book related as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not really qualified to make any other judgment calls. So I don't know. I think that hood, he's got that big cape, but even still, it looks a little too big. I think I'd bring this piece in. I'm not really sure how the cape works, but for me, it seems a little too big. Let's do this real fast and clean this up and get on to something that excites me. So if you guys are thinking of bailing now, like this portfolio's over, you're gonna lose. This is like one of those Marvel like movie moments where you want to stick around and stay for the. I've actually been critiquing myself for the upcoming Indiegogo Black and White remastered series. So this is me in 1994. So I didn't want to show because tomorrow we're gonna have a big preview, new dialogue and everything. So that was that, and I hope you guys like this. This is 2018. So this is me now. So some of the stuff that I'm doing on the critiques is the same way I'm doing this. So I'm coming in digitally and kind of augmenting this stuff. So let's see, I'll find this one, since the biggest thing you'll be able to see is like the face. So let's see. Actually, let me go smaller with this one.
Apparently the feed was lagging a little bit for the last minute.
Okay, is it back? Are we? So was it that guy's critique or was it the black and white preview?
The black and white preview.
Okay. Well, you just missed my drum roll, so you didn't miss much. So this is before. So this is 1994, and then this is now. So you can kind of see the transformation of what I'm doing digitally. So I've never drawn digitally before. So I'm taking this basic drawing and going over it and coming up with this. So this is even kind of a minor check because I didn't want to give you too much right now, but you can kind of see what the black and white remaster is going to be like, and it's going to have all new coloring, like I said, all new writing, everything. And so one of the things that Taylor and I did yesterday, which was a pain, but it had to be done, is, and you can tell by these panels, because they're different sizes, if you notice there's more room up on the top here and less room on this one, is the format, the comic book format in 1994 were wider and less height. New comics are narrower and taller. So we had to add a bunch of extra artwork to the tops of these pages so that they'll format properly, you know, with the contemporary, a contemporary market. So also, gosh, this is bugging me. She's got a new added feature here. There's like, I think, a 21 that's here. And if you look at my art since my daughter was born, there's these numbers that will show up throughout my art, and they're the age that my daughter was when I drew it. So my daughter's 21, so that's why I put 21 on her outfit. And when you read the story, you'll understand why she's got this outfit and why she's in a compromising position here. But this is Black. He's coming in to save her, or at least kind of save her. Anyways, guys, that's it. I hope you liked the little preview, and I hope that the little input that I gave you guys helped. Thanks for supporting, as always, and get the word out, please. What did somebody say? We're only.
Someone wanted to know what it was like to work with Andy Kubert.
Andy is really, really cool. Adam is different. I'll just say he's different. Maybe more demanding, but Andy is very, very supportive, and he likes input. He likes you to do what you're going to do. Adam is a little bit more rigid. He's got real specific ideas. So I like to bring myself into the work, and I was able to do a little bit more of that working with Andy than Adam, because Adam's got, like I said, he's a little bit more rigid, and it's all good, but I like Adam better, or Andy better. So, do we have any good questions left?
People just acknowledging they didn't realize about the format shift that happened between 1994 and now.
Yeah, it's weird. Like the comics look about the same size, but I think they are the same size, right? But the interior format's different. Like the pages, if you look at the old comic books, they don't really utilize the space to the same extent. So there's a lot of gutter. It's not really gutter, but like space between the art and the actual page itself. So there's actually more space on the top of those pages and the bottoms. So it's weird. So I think the newer format utilizes that space a little bit better. But I had no idea until we started doing this. So that was an eye-opening experience. So thanks, guys. Like I said, let's get the word out. Please help in any way you can. I think Taylor and I have a hacks chat for tomorrow scheduled. So, and I think Ben Hennessy invited me. So I may be going on Ben's YouTube station maybe later today. So anyways, guys, thanks again, and I'll see you later.